6 people were murdered on an isolated farm in southern Germany. Not in a robbery, not in a moment of chaos, and not followed by escape. Because after the killings, someone stayed. They fed the animals. They walked through the house. They lived among the dead. The question is not who discovered the bodies. The question is how a crime this intimate, this deliberate, could dissolve into uncertainty and remain unresolved for more than a century. To understand why the Hinterkaifeck murders were never solved, we must first understand the world in which they occurred. In 1922, Germany was a nation still bleeding from the First World War. The Kaiser was gone. The Republic was fragile. Inflation was accelerating, trust in institutions was collapsing, and violence, both political and personal, had become normalized. In rural Bavaria, these pressures manifested differently. Villages were small. Families were interdependent. Reputation mattered more than law. And silence was often safer than accusation. Hinterkaifeck was not a village. It was an Einheithof, a single farmstead surrounded by forest and fields, cut off from daily oversight. Isolation offered independence, but it also created vulnerability. The farm belonged to Andreas Gruber. He lived there with his wife Casilia, his widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 children, Casilia and Joseph, and, briefly, a new maid named Maria Baumgartner. On paper, this was an ordinary rural household. In reality, it was a family under strain. Rumors followed the Gruber farm for years. Accusations of incest between Andreas and Victoria. Questions about the true paternity of Joseph. Legal consequences had already occurred. But socially, the damage never healed. In a community where honor defined survival, the Grubers were isolated even before the murders. Then, months before the crime, the farm began to feel watched. The previous maid quit abruptly, claiming footsteps in the attic. Andreas found a newspaper from Munich on the property, though no one there subscribed to it. After snowfall, footprints appeared leading from the forest to the house. None appeared to lead back. Keys went missing. Doors felt unsecured. Yet no report was made. In rural Bavaria, reporting suspicions carried consequences. Accusations could destroy livelihoods. On March 31, 1922, Maria Baumgartner arrived at Hinterkaifeck. She had been hired as a maid. Her sister helped her settle in, then left the farm. She would be the last outsider to see the family alive. Sometime that night, the murders began. One by one, members of the family were drawn to the barn. There was no sign of struggle spreading through the house. No screams reported by neighbors. Andreas, his wife, Victoria, little Casilia. Each was killed with a heavy farm tool, a mattock. Medical examination would later suggest that the child survived her injuries for hours. Evidence in the hay suggested movement. Strands of hair torn out by her own hands. After the barn, the killer entered the house. Maria Baumgartner was murdered in her room. Then Joseph, still in his crib. The killings were complete. But the story did not end. In the days that followed, something deeply unsettling occurred. Animals were fed. The fire was used. Meals were prepared. Someone moved freely through a house filled with corpses. Deliveries went unanswered. A child did not attend school. The family did not appear at church. These absences were noticed, but not immediately confronted. On April 4th, neighbors entered the farm. They found the bodies. And then, unknowingly, they destroyed the case. People walked through the house, touched the bodies, rearranged objects, even cooked in the kitchen. By the time authorities arrived, the scene was no longer a crime scene. It was a memory. Autopsies confirmed the brutality, the weapon, the sequence. But crucial evidence was already gone. Money remained in the house. Robbery no longer fit. Investigators searched for motives in relationships, not possessions. Suspects emerged. Neighbors, former lovers, even a man officially dead in the war. Each theory explained part of the crime. None explained all of it. The farm was demolished in 1923. Physical context vanished. Memory took its place. Decades passed. Files were reopened, re-examined, closed again. In 1955, the case was officially declared unsolved. Today, nothing remains of Hinterkaifeck. No walls, no roof, only open land. Yet the case endures because it reveals something uncomfortable. Not about violence, but about systems. What happens when secrecy outweighs transparency? When reputation silences warning signs? When the moment to preserve truth passes unnoticed? The Hinterkaifeck murders were not erased by time. They were dissolved by hesitation. And that is why, more than a century later, the most important question remains unanswered. Not who killed the family, but why no one ever truly could know.